And we're live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Tiki Taka Podcast. This is episode number 91. I'm your host, Peter, today joined by the regular crew in Cynthia,
Hi.
Patrick,
Hi guys.
Steven, obviously filling in for Bruno,
Hey, how you doing, guys?
and we got Kevin here as a guest because he would like to say a few words to everybody.
Hey guys, what's up? Um, I'm only going to be on here for a few minutes, but I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who has reached out to me on Twitter um, with Kerri's passing and everything. So it's been a long, almost 2 weeks now, and with everybody's support and the love that they've been showing, it's definitely been great to see, and it's been helping me a lot too. So. Um, Again, I just wanted to thank everybody. I did record a message yesterday with the podcast team, so I'm actually looking forward to all the messages that everybody put. I know Peter is working on that, and Cynthia has been working on that. So yeah, I'm very happy that people wanted to contribute to that. I think it was a great idea, and it's something that we'll have forever. Um, and I speak for myself and for Arya. We thank everybody so much for all the love they've given us and given us their best wishes. It's definitely not been easy. Arya is obviously still young. She doesn't really understand fully what happened yet. But she does know that her mommy's not around anymore and that she's an angel now. And yeah, so she's been handling it better than what I expected, which is a good thing. But for me, obviously, it's different. It's been tough, and trying to go on about my daily life, it's been hard, but I've been pushing along, and with time, I'll be all right. But it's been hard and difficult. Uh, like yesterday when I recorded my message, I said I'd have my good days and my bad days, and definitely this morning when I got up, it was very hard. It was tough. It was like a bad morning for me. It was just hard. So as the day went on, I started feeling a little better. But yeah, I can see that I'll be having a lot of days like that. But yeah, I just want to thank everybody again for all the love. It definitely means a lot to me and Aria. So yeah, definitely looking forward to hearing everything. And yeah, that's all I got for right now. But I will be back on the podcast for the Benfica Porto match after it. So even if Porto doesn't win, I will be on because that was the last time that it was the first and last time that Kerri did a podcast. She was actually on the first time when Porto hosted Benfica. We're actually both on that time. So just to be in honor of her and in her memory, I'll be on for her because I'm sure she would have wanted to be on again. So you guys can pencil me in if that's all right, and I'll be there.
For sure. Definitely. Thank you, Kevin, for the words, and I'm pretty sure that everybody's going to appreciate your thank you for the messages. But I just want to, before I let you go, I just want to just let Cynthia kind of explain the idea behind the tribute, because it was basically pretty much her idea.
Almost. I'm not going to take full credit because I was messaging with Maz and Caro because the three of us have a little DM going together, and I told them, I was like, we need to give messages for Aria because I've got young ones and I would want them to know what people thought of me. So I want her to have that. And as much as you want to talk about Kerri, people might think you're biased, you know? So we just want her to know you're not that biased. She was actually an angel on earth, and she just got her wings, you know? So Maz said, make them out to Arya, let her know. And and we got tons of messages from people. There were some people who still DM'd me saying that they wanted to, but they couldn't find the words, or they weren't strong enough. They couldn't hold it together for the message, so they didn't send them. But the ones we did receive are amazing. Every single one of them is perfect from that personality or that person coming to you and Aria. They're beautiful. So I really hope that that we're able to keep it in. As long as YouTube's up, it'll be up.
Yeah, and I thank you guys for putting everything together for her and for me and Arya. Like I said, it's definitely gonna last us a lifetime. So we'll always have that, and Arya will always have that, which is the most important thing. So, yeah, thank you to you guys for even coming up with this idea, and it's always much appreciated. So, you know, I love everybody here on Twitter. Like it's like a family. We all feel like that way. That we are a family, regardless of what team you support. So it it definitely now more than ever feels like a family for sure.
Even if you are the weirdo cousin that likes Porto, yes, you're my family. We've all got one, and you're mine.
All right. So thank you a lot, Kevin, for today and yesterday too. And I can't wait to have the video up for you and everyone else to see just what the idea came, to fruition, like how it actually looks like in the end. I think everybody's going to enjoy it a lot, especially you and Aria.
I hope so.
Well, thank you, and you guys enjoy the rest of the podcast and have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Beijinhos, primo.
Bye.
Bye, Kevin. All right. So now that Kevin has thanked everyone, we're gonna move on now with the rest of the show, right? What they say, the show must go on, right? And we're going to start off with Patrick just saying a couple of things like when he was telling me off air about the Portugal national team, because honestly I didn't watch either of the games and it's been a while since they played, but Patrick was saying a couple of things that I think they deserve to be said live. So Patrick, take it away.
Yeah, so obviously this time last week we had the Portugal games against Egypt and Holland, the final games before Fernando Santos drafts his preliminary squad for the World Cup, and it's also one of those breaks that sometimes it can be useful for example for players who haven't featured regularly in a national setup. I want to make an impression off the back of a decent season, the likes of Bruno Fernandes, Manuel Fernandes, a few others. But it's also one of those situations where, for example, you've got guys like Ruben Dias and stuff like that who would also like to break through. But in March, the season is coming to its final lap, and everything is so dependent on the fine detail. Sometimes players save themselves a bit, and it can come across a bit of a dead rubber. And I think that's what happened a bit in both games. There were weird games to watch. It wasn't a true reflection of what will happen at the World Cup. I think things will turn out to be quite different, maybe for the better, maybe for the worse. I'm not sure. Portugal had quite open games against Egypt and Holland. I think come the World Cup, they'll certainly try to be a lot more disciplined in the way they approach things and try to control their own futures that way. But if there's anything that we can take away from obviously the 2-1 win and the 3-0 defeat against Holland, it's not a positive, but it's a negative. In fact, it's Portugal's troubles at the back. Obviously, we've gone through a period where we didn't have a striker. Now we seem to have that lockdown with a guy like Ronaldo who can score the goals, and André Silva, who's obviously an interesting prospect. But now at the back, if we look at our options, we have the likes of Pep, who's a very good player, but he's getting on a little bit. And beyond that, I don't think the quality quite matches up to what Pep has. You've got players like Ruben Dias, Paulo Oliveira, Ruben Viz, all very inexperienced. And on the other side, a lot of older players who probably shouldn't be anywhere near the national team, but might have to find themselves getting a call up. And it's a tricky conundrum for Fernando Santos to take into a World Cup because it does, to me, it does look like we need to find a solution, and it could turn out to be a shame that we have to find a solution so close to the World Cup, and we haven't been able to extend that problem and sort it out after. It's one of those things where we'll have to see how it goes. But to me, I think that's the key highlight to take away from the two friendlies is that defensively, particularly centrally. Portugal has a problem that needs to be addressed, and we'll see how big of a problem it may be come June and July.
Thank you. I would just say that my solution is extremely simple, and let's just play Jardel with Ruben Dias because why not?
Let's not.
It would work. It would work. I mean, come on.
No, I don't think. I personally don't think Jardel is up to scratch. Perhaps a few years ago, maybe it'd be an option, but not for me. Ruben Dias is a good option, in my opinion, to have. But then again, we have to be cautious a little bit. He has been very impressive, but I'm always very cautious with defenders in the Portuguese league. To make that jump into a World Cup, it's one of those things. Obviously, Pep will be the main fixture. If he has an injury, that'd be quite something leading up to the World Cup. But it should be him, and next to him, I don't know who will play. That's the position that's up for grabs, really.
Right. So now that we're done with the Portugal talk, let's move on to this jornada. So from the big three, the first game was obviously Benfica, who took on Vitória Sport Clube, aka Vitória de Guimarães. Benfica won this game 2-0. Jonas scored twice. Let me give you the lineup first. So it was Bruno Varela in goal. We had André Almeida, Ruben Dias, Jardel, and Grimaldo across the back, with the midfield of Zivkovic, Pizzi, and Feza, and the front three of Rafa, Jonas, and Servi. Cynthia, like usual, take it away.
All right. Well, I'm terrible. I wasn't paying horrible attention to it. It was on, but I wasn't focused on it. Sorry, Benfica. I'm sorry. Whatever. I did notice they don't pay my socio bill, so I'll watch it if I want to. I did notice it was a rough first half, and then Jonas only got to score in the added time on a penalty. And I did just want to say the penalty was a correct handball, because I saw some people saying, oh, it looks like when Louison went down. No, it doesn't. Louison looked like he was falling. So the ref was like, this is you falling. This is not you trying to block it. This guy, his hand was down, and then he decides to raise his hand like he's in class and he has an answer. No. That's not right. So it's a correct handball. Lucky, I was very happy that luckily for luckily for us, Jonas did a straight run up, because I hate those little pitter patter. No, just run and hit the damn penalty. I hate that. So he finally did a great one, not a 2-year-old doing a pee-pee dance. And then I know. You see my life.
Cynthia.
Raul was then subbed on for Servi eventually, and I was like, I don't like Servi leaving, but I love Raul on, because he set up the second goal. And I saw some people get upset with the way he crossed the ball in, and I think it's hilarious. I know Quaresma used to do that when he was younger. I'm not sure if he does it so much now, but I love that little cheeky leg behind your other leg kick. It's fantastic. It dekes out defenders. It's great. I love it. I wish we saw more of it, to be honest, but then it wouldn't be so cool. There's a rebound off the side that I was actually very proud of Varela, because rather than giving it to the middle where people were coming on after us, he actually shot the rebound out to the side where it was empty, and I was like, "That's fantastic. I'm not so worried now." So he made me a bit more confident in him this weekend. Otherwise, we got 3 points. It was a win. We're great. I feel like the first half was a pain. They couldn't score, but then eventually we were able to get in there. And I think Guimarães had more chances than I'd like. And they're a great side, so I always get nervous. And I did just want to shout out to Mario's cousin Nieta, because she lives there with her husband João and the baby Joãozinho. So Guimarães is beautiful. So it's a great team, great city. We beat them. Yay!
All right. So I just wanted to add that I thought that the first 10 minutes were actually pretty good. I saw a lot of
10 minutes. Come on.
one-touch pass. Calm down, Cynthia.
The half is 45. You can't just play 10.
I know, but I was saying that the first 10 minutes were actually really good. But then we just took the foot off the gas, and I thought Almeida had one of these first bad games of the season, really. I thought he wasn't that good. Rafa was a bit poor, too. But the team on the left side worked really, really well. And hold on a second. See.
Me?
Sorry, I just wanted you to say something. Because
sorry.
someone decided to interrupt me, and I was like, what? Like, I'm doing the thing. Like, that was weird. Anyway, sorry about that. But as I was saying, before I got rudely interrupted, I thought the left side worked really, really well with Grimaldo being probably Benfica's best player in this game. He had a lot of opportunities to score too. Miguel Silva made a couple of good saves. The penalty is most definitely a penalty. And Benfica could have easily won this game by more goals, but it was a 2-0 scoreline. Even with the poor performance,
the only way I can fix it is go into the manual, but that'll take me an hour to do.
Oh my gosh, if his coworker comes back, put him on.
I'm not
ask you about it. I don't even know how that could happen, honestly.
Okay. Steven, your mic's if you're not talking, you should mute your mic.
I'll figure something out, but see what you can do now. All right? And just note on the book. All right?
While you're trying to gather your thoughts, I do want to say, of all the jerseys, I always thought Guimarães had really funky ones because it's the monochrome and it's the black and the white, and I think it's so cool. Not that I would sport them, but I think they have cool jerseys.
They're my second team in Portugal, so.
Oh.
Yeah, I went to more Guimarães games than Benfica games. Almost, yeah, probably, yeah. So
what kind of fan are you? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, once you can go into some games for free, you don't say no to that.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, like to sum it up, Benfica had a good first 10 minutes. That's how I want to see them play the whole half. The penalty was most definitely a penalty. Benfica still created a lot of chances. Guimarães had a few, but overall, even with a poor performance, it could have been well more than 2-0. At least in my point of view, if we managed to score the chances that we had, especially with Grimaldo. Patrick, I don't know if you want to weigh in on this game, if you saw it.
Yeah, saw it. As you say, Benfica started quite well first 10 minutes, and Guimarães added to that spell. So within the first 15, 20 minutes, we had a bit of a lively game, some end-to-end action, some good openings, but nothing too spectacular throughout the rest of the first half. Obviously, Jonas got the penalty, which helped Benfica a little bit, especially from a mental point of view. And then I thought in the second half, Benfica were a little bit better. Obviously, as you say, Grimaldo had a great game. His involvement was key down that left flank, and it seemed all the way that if Benfica were to add to their lead, it would be from that left side, and it came from a bit of magic from Jimenez, and Jonas was there to tap it away, make it 2-0 quite comfortably. There was a chance at the end as well where Seferovic could have made it 3-0. We should have made it 3-0, but he didn't. It was was I don't know, simple game really for Benfica to take, and they took it. Lots of situations, but only in isolation. But at this stage of the season, you take a win all day long, and that's what Benfica have got, and the top of the league now. So that's from Benfica's standpoint, that's all that matters.
Exactly. Steven, I don't know if you want to say anything about this game, man.
I pretty much agree with everybody what they said as far as Benfica starting the game out pretty well. Usually when Benfica plays against Guimarães, it's usually a pretty competitive game. But as far as a Porto fans' perspective of it, it's a good win for them. I would hope they had lost the game, but they didn't, and that hurt us in the end because Porto ended up losing their game. So, but good game for them.
All right, and Steven, one more thing. If you're not talking, if you could mute your mic, that would be
Got it.
really good.
Sorry
Thank you.
about that.
Don't worry. Patrick, right back to you, man. Sporting played Braga next, so it's your turn to take it away.
Yeah. So obviously the big absence in this game was William, who obviously dropped out of the Portugal squad the week prior and didn't make it for the game against Braga. Instead, the usual back four: Patricio in net with Coentrão, Mathieu, Coates, and Piccini. Battaglia filled in at defensive midfield with Bruno Fernandes and Brian Ruiz joining them in the middle. Gelson Martins on the right, Acuna on the left, and Bastos played up front. It was a game that Sporting started quite well. Obviously, it's always a difficult game against Braga, so you have to take what you get sometimes. But I think we did start quite well, and then slowly and gradually, I think Braga started to come into the game and make things a lot more difficult for Sporting. And I think the disappointing thing, obviously, from a Sporting standpoint, is that Sporting never really managed to bite back again and grab hold of the game. I wouldn't say we come away feeling dominated or anything like that by Braga. But I think both teams sort of got to a position where they locked each other out, and I don't think neither of the two sides really created enough chances to really assert any kind of dominance. Obviously, there was the penalty shout that people are talking about on Bastos, where the keeper comes in late on Dost and takes him out off the ball. That's a valid talking point, which perhaps could have been a penalty, but then he still got scored a penalty, so it could very very much turn out to be the same outcome by the end of the game. There's also the foul on Gelson, which disallowed Braga's first goal, which, in my opinion, was the correct call. Those are really the talking points. Then going into the second half, again, the pattern followed on. I think no team really created that much. I think a lot of the situations were shot from range and things like that, things of that ilk. It was never really anything like substantial to either of the two teams. And obviously there was a turning point where Sporting perhaps would have liked to have pushed on late on, and that's obviously when Piccini gets his red card, and that changes the dynamic of the game a bit. And it helped Braga, obviously from the set piece. And Piccini's one of Sporting's tallest members in the squad. Perhaps, who knows, perhaps would have added a little bit more organisation to the set piece that Sporting were about to defend, and Braga end up winning 2 or 3 balls in the air consecutively, and the Braga player who ends up scoring the winner. So it was a bit of a kick in the teeth, really, especially with the Porto result straight afterwards. It's disappointing to have lost against Braga, but I think Sporting has to keep their heads up and move on from it. Really, the title is pretty much gone, but you got other things to focus on. You won't want to let Braga creep in, which could happen because Braga are playing very well currently. So Sporting still have to be alert to what can happen there, and obviously, as we'll get onto a bit later on, we've still got difficult games like in the Europa League and the Portuguese Cup to focus on. So there's still plenty for Sporting to play for, and I hope personally, I hope this isn't a defeat that Sporting dwells on too much.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me disagree with you on some things. So I thought that Sporting started the game strong, and as usual, Braga started off poorly. They started off poorly against every single big team. This was no different. Sporting had their chances; they couldn't take it. My personal opinion on the play that a lot of people are calling a penalty, I honestly think that it's just contact. That it's just normal contact between the goalkeeper and Bastos. If you would have called it, I wouldn't have been super surprised. But honestly, I feel like it was just a normal play. But then I don't know, like starting the first, after the first 20 minutes, 25 minutes, it was all Braga till the end of the game. No, they didn't have a lot of clear cut chances. No, but I remember one, especially from Wilson Eduardo, where if he shoots the ball with his left foot, that ball is going in because Patricio's not on the net. And they had, other shots, other opportunities, including the goal, which honestly, I swear to God, I cannot see the touch on the knee. I know a lot of people are talking about a touch on the knee. Man, I can't see. Honestly, I genuinely can't see it.
Like the
But if he did
VAR
touch
one?
him, then yeah. But
Yeah.
if he did touch it, then if he did touch him, good decision. But I don't honestly cannot see it, and I thought that the referee was pretty decisive on the field at the time, where he clearly told Gelson to get up. I think he probably saw a dive, so I was confident that he wasn't going to overturn it just because of the way that he was so. He looked really decisive with his decision. Basically, I thought that he made the right decision, but obviously, after seeing the replays, he managed to see a touch that a lot of us couldn't see.
Can I actually make a little point here too?
Go ahead.
I don't see a touch. I think it was a dive. When he saw it with the naked eye, he said, "Get up and play on," and he was directly in front of him. Then he goes to VAR, and a bunch of those fans start throwing things at him. And he gets something. Gets something right on the side of the head, like this little weird, like white balloon. I don't know, maybe cocaine. I highly doubt they throw cocaine at him, but they throw something at him, a little condom, whatever. They throw it. It hits him directly in the head. He gets upset, backs up, tells the other guys, "Oh, they're throwing stuff," goes up, and then calls it. And I think that, and I know I'm being an ass, I think that was just because he was mad at the fans, because I don't see a damn touch. And there's so many angles, and every angle, I don't see a touch. So I think it was the fans throwing shit. Like I've said every episode, guys, stop throwing things. It doesn't help.
It's just that I don't see the foot of the guy supposedly committing the foul even moving. But it's such a hard call. I don't think he should have called it to Sporting's way. But anyway, he got called, and that was it. We go to halftime. It's still 0-0. And it's starting the second half. It was more Braga. It was all Braga. All Braga. Braga had most of the chances of the game. Were they quick cut? No. Andre Horta had a good shot that went a bit wide off the post. They had other opportunities. Again, they weren't clear cut, but if one team deserved to win, it was only one of them, because Sporting did nothing to try and win this game. I thought also it was super ridiculous to take off Ruben Ribeiro after subbing him on. I honestly, I know there was only I don't know if there were 10 minutes left or something, but why would he take? Why won't he take, for example, Fábio Coentrão off? Which is one of the things that I praise with Vitória, is when Benfica needs to score a goal and it's late on, he doesn't feel scared to put on Servi to do the whole left wing, because he knows he's capable of doing the left wing. So Acunha is more than capable of doing the left wing. Why wasn't he there, or anyone else like Bataglia, for example? But anyway, I thought that that Sporting did nothing at all to get the result, and they come away with a loss, and this is just usually what JJ always does against big teams. It's the same norm. He comes out either defensive in the first half and he attacks a bit in the beginning of the second, or he starts on offense and then starts to defend. And that was exactly what he did. He started off strong in the first 10, 20 minutes, and then he just backed off and never tried to get anything going. Even his substitutions, I mean, you bring on Freddie Montero, I mean, yeah, he's not really the best player, but they don't really have a lot of options either because of a roster that was good. They're lacking options now. But I just feel like no Sporting fan should be annoyed at this result in a way that their team deserved better, because I honestly just believe that they didn't.
No, I wouldn't say that we deserve to win the game at all. I just think obviously if we're looking at this as a race or something, obviously Braga would be ahead, but I don't think they would have done enough to. Personally, I don't think they did enough during the game to be like clear cut. We definitely deserve to win this. I agree. If there's a team that should have won that, it probably is Braga. But I just feel like that was a game that could have so easily ended up as a draw. I mean, and we shelve the game away as what it is, as a draw. I do think, obviously, touching on Braga's dominance, and this will go into a bit of criticism on Jesus. I think what Sporting missed, obviously, was William, because he's the player who, as we saw against Porto a few weeks ago, in Porto they love to press in numbers and high up the field. He's one of the few, perhaps the only player in the Sporting squad who's capable of picking his moments and finding a way to get out of that high press and transport the game. And in Braga are a team that know how to press well, and Sporting really struggled at certain points and to do that. Obviously, Battaglia is a very different player. I don't know whether Jesus could have, perhaps gone with a wild card and played Vendel, because Vendel is, of the options in midfield, he's the one technically, purely on technical ability, he's the one who's closest to doing what William can do when he's on the ball. And perhaps he could have paired up Vendel with Battaglia and then Bruno Fernandes a little bit higher up. I think that probably would have suited Sporting better on the day. But, he didn't. And in a way, I can also understand why he didn't, because Vendel hasn't found the time yet to slot Vendel in and bed him into the team, into the system. I think Sporting have had a lot of tricky games, going back to those games where we're 10-man down and we score in the 99th minute and all that.
But Patrick, but just one thing, I think that's also JJ's fault, because I remember asking you one game where you guys started Misic, and I was like, why not play Vendel? So in those times where he could have had Vendel get used to the team and play him, he decided to pick Misic over him. So
yeah, but I mean, we have to, Misic is a new player as well. He needs new opportunities. I understand that. Obviously, Vendel's the one who's come with a big reputation, and all that. But in reality, I think we have to look at it. And Sporting have two new players, who are in the first team squad, and they need the opportunities. I wasn't too disappointed to see Misic, because Misic, we can't forget that Misic before that was just like Vendel and wasn't getting minutes at all. So obviously, with the reputation that Vendel has, and having seen a bit of him in Brazil, knowing the clubs that were interested in him, obviously it's very easy for a fan to come away and think, I would have liked to have seen him. And definitely, I'd agree with the general sentiment right now that we should at this stage of the season we should have seen Vendel far more than what we have done. And if we had done that, probably would have played on Saturday night, and probably would have helped the team a little bit more in a way that William would have done if he was fit. But it's all. I think it's been poorly planned by Jesus. The integration of the players. It feels like he's bought them now and left it, for next season or whatever to really kick on with them. He's got his system in his head, and he's running with that. But I think he's just planned it wrong, and he's trying to find a way around it. But ultimately, he's planned it wrong, and we should have seen Vendel on Saturday.
Patrick, if Sporting end up just winning the Taça da Liga and they finish third, what do they have to do to finally get over the hump? Because they had that great year where JJ, and the whole team bottled it near the end with Benfica going first after the game against you guys at the Alvalade.
Yeah.
And then last year you guys were also a little bit poor. And this year, it might turn out to be more of the same. What is it that you think that you guys need to do to finally get over the hump? Because you're is it the depth of the squad? What is it?
Going back to the first season, I thought, no sport. I don't think any sporting fan can come away from that season disappointed. I thought it was a fantastic season, and in another year, I think Sporting would have won that. Obviously, Benfica were able to match that, but it's not a total of points that's very often matched. And what Sporting needed is essentially to replicate that season across over to these newer campaigns. Obviously, second season, I think where Sporting really messed up was with the depth of the squad. Essentially, I thought there was quite a lot of poor signings that were made, and that was evident with how quickly some of those were shipped out. And coming into this season, I thought we were a lot closer to our first build under Jesus. But we did. We are lacking, I think, a little bit in certain areas. There are bits that Sporting needs to fine tune, but even then, I think we have to accept sometimes that our league is competitive, and this year there are 3 teams really going for the title, and that's it. Only one of them can win. I see a lot of people like calling for Jesus to go, or whatever, and all that. But I think we need to calm down a bit, because essentially we are out of it now. But we've been knocking on the door all the way right up until this moment. We've won the League Cup. We're in the semis of the Portuguese Cup. We're to play Atletico Madrid tomorrow. We'll see what happens there. We've been great performance-wise against other big clubs, so that's one game that we should look forward to. There's so many positives since that 2015-2016 season. I really hate to see Jesus go at the end of the season or whatever. I'd really, in my opinion, that if I was to make the decision, there's no way Jesus would leave, and I'd give him the duration of his contract, which would be his final season next season, to give it one final push and see what happens. Because I don't think Sporting are a million miles off. We're looking at fine margins, really. Perhaps bringing in 1 or 2 options and getting rid of another couple, and I think Sporting will be ready to face up to the challenge.
What I just think it's frustrating as a sporting fan is that you guys made and keep making major investments, or at least very decent investments. I mean, just thinking about Vendel, Acuna, and Bruno Fernandes. That's almost like 25, if not more, 25 million or more on three players. And then this just seems to be a lack of depth in certain places where there shouldn't be. And I think that frustrates. And also paying 8 million to JJ is also, and not seeing results, obviously it should frustrate fans a little bit. But I just want to ask you one more thing before I let everybody else talk about the game. Because this apparently struck a nerve on a lot of Sportingistas, and I know that you're more calmer, and you know that it doesn't come from a trolling perspective when I ask you this. It's just an honest discussion. But do you think that the fact that when Bruno Carvalho decides to go on wars against a certain team or a certain president, do you not think that also helps fuel the other team when playing against Sporting and say, hey, this dude has been saying bad things about us or our president or our coach, so we're going to get fired up and we're going to beat them? Do you think that that's the case, or do you think that us as Benfica and Portistas are, Benfica and Porto fans, that we're over, trying to put that something that it's not,
Here's the thing. I think that sort of stuff is part and parcel of Portuguese football. There's so much talking that goes on off the field, and what we have here at Sporting is obviously someone like Bruno Carvalho who's doing perhaps overtime in that regard, because Sporting are a club who, for so long at the very top of its hierarchy, has been bullied and quietened over the years. That he's come in and he's tried to revolutionise things. Obviously, that he will say a few things that will upset people along the way. His main ambition is to defend the club and make sure it's not messed about. And there will be times where he says something that will upset a president or a group of players. But at the same time, when you create this sort of conflict, that could be productive for your own players. I mean, what we saw leading up to the Braga game, that whole dispute about the money and all that, and all the talk that was going on. If you try to implement that sort of conflict into the mind of a Braga player, say, come on, let's go out there. Let's do it for the club. That the same thing can be done for the Sporting players on the day, and that whole motivation and desire to get the result that the club wants. So I don't think what Bruno Carvalho says off the field really has much of a bearing. At the end of the day, it's 11 versus 11 when we get onto the pitch, and each player has to take on the challenge with their own frame of mind and see what happens. That's where it's decided ultimately.
Mm-hmm. All right. Cynthia, so before you're the last one, so this time I don't want you to be the last one. Do you have anything to say about this Braga Sporting game?
I do. And don't pick on me, guys, okay? I'm going to call it a little segment. Coentrão is a pateta. This week, he decides to slap the ball from a Braga player and then smacks his face, which I believe is a red card to everybody else, but what do I know? Then he asks us to hold his beer while he outdoes that BS and love bumps Abel, the coach, and then talks some smack. And when Abel knocks down the ball and says falta de respeito, Abel is expelled. It's good times, good times. So tune in next week to see where Fabio Coentrão will take us in his douche journey, while we all ask, how far can he go? And that's my take of Sporting.
It's a bell, by the way.
I know, it's Abel. It's Cain and Abel. It's a biblical term. Thanks for coming out.
It's
a bell's Portuguese. I'm not from Portugal.
Thank
and
you.
It's coats, not quates.
It's quates. Anyway, Patrick, you were saying.
Yeah, I thought it was right to do what he did with a bell, by the way, because obviously Sporting we're chasing the result, and Abel's gone to get the ball, and he's got one thing on his mind, and that's to keep the ball and waste a few precious seconds. And when Coentrão gets there, he has a very poor reaction, which is very poor to see. In fact, in general, Abel's a manager who, prior to the season, I had great respect for. I thought he was a calm character, someone who's very focused on the game. But he's come out with some very strange takes whenever he's in the spotlight, and I thought that situation was another where he didn't cover himself in much glory. I just think it's very disappointing to see him do something like that. I'm not sure why he's doing it.
Well, I agree with you. We also don't know what was being said, during that part and during the whole game.
Yeah, but it was something that happened
I
very
do agree
quickly,
with you, though, But
I think he's only gone to get the ball to time waste, and Coentrão's gone to rush him because he wants to take the throw in and crack on, see if he can get a goal for his team, and that's what happens. But I just don't like seeing managers go out of their way to do that, and especially Abel, who I've earmarked already, having said some some unnecessary stuff in press conferences and what have you this season. I didn't like to see what was done on his behalf.
Mm-hmm. All right. Before we move on to Porto, Steven, is there anything you want to say about this Braga Sporting game? If he's around. There we go.
Hello.
Hey, Steven.
Hey, so as far as the Sporting game, I think it deserved a win for Braga. And obviously Sporting did not deserve to win that game. Didn't create as many chances as Braga did, but Braga played their game, and it was just one of those games where you got to grind it out. And I think a good win for Braga, and bad loss for Sporting because I don't think they did enough and had enough depth on the bench to help their cause.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, Steven, I don't know if you have the Porto lineup ready or not because it's your time to go up. So it's your time to talk Porto.
All right. So Porto's starting 11 was Suarez and Abubakar up front. Brahimi at the left, Oliveira and Herrera in midfield. Ricard Pereira playing at right mid in place for Corona. Alex Telles at left back. Osorio y Felipe at center back position, and then Maxi Pereira at right back, and Casillas at goalie. On the bench, we have Santos on the bench, Oliver Torres, Gonzalo Paciencia, Danilo, Reyes, Vana, and Diogo on the bench. And then for Valence, they have Nathan and Lika up front, Freddie behind them. Then you got Diogo Viana at the right, F. Hanen at the left. You got Yebda and Bakik in the middle. Aman at center back, Sasu at center back, Silva at center back, and Moreira at goalie. And then on the bench, you got Becker, Pinto, Moraes, which was one of the goal scorers, Pereira, André Jaldes, Diaz, and Tomas.
So your thoughts on the game?
Bad loss for Porto. Obviously, we were not very good at the back. We had that first mistake in the beginning of the game, which was an early goal for Valence. I thought, obviously, there was no communication between the center backs, which is obviously an issue between Osario and Felipe. January, a player that came in January, so maybe lack of communication and chemistry between the two, which would cause the mistake. And I think mentally, the team was trying to get back from that 1-0 down throughout the game. Not a lot of clear-cut chances, just a lot of shots that were going to bars, stuff like that. Not a lot of link-up play. And then we had some chances with the set pieces, but we weren't finishing. I didn't think we had chances where I thought, it was going to be a chance where I felt we were going to score confidently. And then we made another mistake in the second half where the sub from Valence came in And it was another mistake defensively because it was a goal in the set piece where we weren't, watching that guy. And next thing you know, they score the goal, and we're 2-0 down away from home. And, I'm not surprised that they were able to hold on to the lead for the rest of the game, especially being up 2. I think in the past we've had our issues with this team, trying to score on them, at least from away. And, being 2-0 down didn't help the cause. So disappointed as a Porto fan, but I accept the loss as a man. And, that's what else can I say about it?
Yeah. Patrick, what you want to share your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, so again, it was another game. I think for the big three this week. It was a week where we lacked quite a lot of creativity. That we usually have that spark. But going into the game, obviously, first goal goes to Bolognese quite early, which changes the dynamic of the game a bit. Suddenly, Porto have to be a lot more urgent about how they do things, especially with the pressure, knowing that Benfica are top of the table and you need a win to protect your own position. And I think what we saw was a Porto team that they were very urgent, but it was one of those situations that I think sometimes where when you're so urgent and you're constantly looking for the flanks to get that cross in and all that. Sometimes it's good to be a little bit more composed and think a little bit, try something a little bit different. And I go back to the Porto squad and think where can that come from? If it's not Brahimi. And again, Oliver Torres, it's a game where he doesn't feature, and he's a player who is capable of thinking a bit differently to the other players. And it's a situation I don't think Conceição is paying much attention to. Ironically, the second goal comes from Modric, who's Maicon's brother. Obviously, Maicon, who was ousted a season or two ago. So that adds to the bad moment that Porto are living right now, and it'll be interesting to see Porto's reaction now. Obviously, as I said like a month ago, Porto were flying in the league, and they were quite clearly the team that was playing the best football. But all that can change very quickly, and all of a sudden we've got 2 defeats in the space of 3-4 fixtures for them. It'll be interesting to see what happens to Porto psychologically with that, because in my opinion, I think it can be a lot tougher to start the season so well and then begin to dip towards the end than it is, for example, as Benfica did, to start poorly and then continue growing. We'll see what happens though. Both teams, it's a simple case of both teams going into their fixtures and trying to win every single one of them. Somewhere along the line, there will be a situation where they split, because obviously Benfica and Porto play each other. But yeah, it's beginning to get interesting now at the top of the table.
Mm-hmm. Before people start saying things, I just want to say that I just saw a picture of André Moreira at the Benfica's pavilion watching basketball. So just thought that was funny after his great game against Porto, that he shows up at the Pavilion da Luz. So that was funny. But anyway, I don't want to claim. To be a genius, or that this is what's going to happen.
I'm sure you don't want to claim to be a genius.
No, I don't. But it's just starting to feel a lot like what I said about Sérgio Conceição, is that he's not a great manager. He feeds on adrenaline, he feeds on the emotion, but tactically, he's not, the most solid of coaches. That's why I thought, that JJ, for example, is going to have a quote unquote easy time beating him. And I just feel that that teams have the ability to outclass him even with lesser players. And obviously Porto feeling the pressure of Benfica playing first, which didn't happen last year, but it's happening this year, and they concede that early goal, and then Porto was just putting the ball inside the box. There wasn't much to it, and whenever they tried to get something going, I thought Blanius did a very solid job defending. They had about 4 to 5 men around Brahimi, and obviously when you're surrounded by 5 men, what are you going to do? Obviously, Porto still had a fair amount of chances, but the goalkeeper's there to save it, and we're talking about André Moreira, which is a goalkeeper that is currently signed by Atletico Madrid. So obviously, he has the ability to make those saves. You would expect those saves out of a goalkeeper that plays for them, and I praise Nathan a lot because that goal is not an easy goal to score, especially going up against Casillas, a very, experienced goalie. You might be a little bit nervous, and he just chips it over him like it's nothing. It's a very important and very good goal. And then the second goal is Felipe just being Felipe. I mean, he's got no need to foul Lika because Lika has his back turned to goal. He doesn't have anywhere around him. All he has to do is contain, and he pushes him. He fouls him unnecessarily, and from the free kick, very well struck free kick. Again, the defense is caught napping, and Maric, swats it in for the 2-0. I mean, a lot of people are starting to jump on the let's blame Osorio bandwagon, but what can Osorio do? I mean, he was the only available center back for the game, at least from what I know. I know that Reyes might have been on the bench, but he was conditioned because of. I think he played with the Mexico not even like 2 days ago, and he came off hurt or something like that. I know that he wasn't 100%. So you put Osorio in, and even without Osorio, they put in Danilo, and what could happen? Danilo was going to need a new surgery. Was it because they decided to play him when they were already 2-0 down? Maybe. So people criticizing Osorio doesn't make a lot of sense. If you want to criticize someone, you criticize the guy that's been playing the most, which was Felipe. Which I thought he had a terrible game, and like I said in the beginning of the season, I never thought that Abubakar was a consistent goal scorer, and he's proving to not be a consistent goal scorer here. And the Porto team without Brahimi, there's not a lot of options around there. Sergio apparently does not believe in Oliver Torres. Other than Oliver, they don't really have anybody else. So. I don't know if.
But I think that as I said, a lot of that depends on like how complicated the game turns out to be. Because if Porto are going into a game, head on a normal day, and they're very capable of overpowering a lot of teams. Obviously, they've had a few like big injuries recently. We had Ricardo, who's playing very well. He got injured. Danilo, who's not coming back. Abubakar was firing, and obviously, if you have an injury to interrupt your rhythm, and Abubakar missed, quite a substantial amount of games, like 4 or 5 at least. It can be very difficult, but I still think Porto are a very good unit, and Conceição has put together a very strong way of playing football. But I just think there, as I said a few months ago, or a month or 2 ago, there will be situations like Bulnes, like Pasferreira, where something can happen, like an early goal, and that's when you need to, vary your game a bit. I just think Porto lack that variation, and that's where, if they do end up coming unstuck, I think that's where Porto begins to crumble.
Mm-hmm. Cynthia, I don't know if you want to say anything. You're being very quiet.
I was just listening to you guys. You like, everybody makes good points. Steven, he said it when he was giving his breakdown of the game, and then you guys all you've Yeah, you analyze it well. But I do want to say with Conceição, what scares me is he's a motivator. So even if he is having a couple of bad games, that dude, like, holy shit, he motivates. And when their team is on, they're a force to be reckoned with. So I know that a few people have been super excited that we're in first, but this is like tooth and nail. We're gonna have to fight tooth and nail to get this to get these wins. So as long as they keep slipping up, sorry, but I am smiling over here in the corner. I also think that Brahimi needs to settle down a little bit because, like the first half, they were all getting very frustrated, and especially Abubakar. But Brahimi, he starts putting hands on people, and eventually, either the league or refs are just going to start sending him off. You know what I mean? So even if he is fatigued, even if he is injured, being sent off is not going to help you either. So he's got to simmer down, or not, because it helps me. But
It's part of the frustration, isn't it? Because Brahimi's naturally a hothead anyway, and
that foul that he makes is near the end of the game is just stupid, and no sense for that. Sorry to cut you off, Patrick.
But no, it's just part of the what you call it. Obviously, if you've got someone who's as temperamental as Brahimi, and everything has to go through you, and you're not getting what you expect out of your performance. I think it's quite plausible that we see a lot of that from Brahimi from whenever Porto find themselves in trouble. He's just that kind of guy.
Yeah, and also Cynthia, I can turn what you said a bit around because
motivator.
Yeah, because Rui Vitória he's won games solely based on heart too.
Of course he has.
Académica a couple of years ago, Rio Ave. So it's not like we have not seen our Boa Vista 2 years ago. So it's not like we've seen Benfica also be very well motivated, and especially that Sporting game where we were playing just awful, and Sporting would have been playing really well, and we saw those Benfica players looked like they were fighting for their lives in that game. So it might also work in Porto's favor, but it might also work on Benfica's, right? Because what have we seen the past 3 years or the past 2 years is that Benfica, once they get that lead, they don't let up, and that's what happened 2 years ago. That's what happened last year. So who knows if it's going to happen this year too? So it also has that it's 50-50, can go both ways.
Might want to jinx it.
No, I mean I do believe, though. I personally believe if Benfica comes away of the Porto game with what would be basically a 5-point lead, which would be 4 plus the advantage on head to head, then Benfica surely would win the title. Obviously, they still have to finish, but if you can go to Alvalade knowing that you can lose that game and still be first by what would literally be 2 points.
Or even tie it if Sporting shit the bed, right? Because that's what's happened. You know what I mean? Like there's a few things that are happening that it's just poop in the bed.
Right. I think if Benfica comes away with a win against Porto, or if they come out with a 2-game advantage, then it would be hard for them to lose the title. It wouldn't be impossible, but it would be hard. But it's going to be a fight until the end. Really, honestly.
Yeah.
So.
Definitely.
It'll be a big test of Conceição's motivational capabilities. We all know he's a motivator, but just how good of a motivator he is in this sort of situation. I think that'll determine quite a lot of what happens. And obviously, Benfica have got to turn up for the big games as well, because I think
yes, we do.
Benfica have only against Sporting have they really played well against a
I mean, we had 2 games
and Braga. No, but I mean,
right.
In terms of the Champions League and all that.
Oh yeah.
And,
no, exactly. We shit the bed, yeah.
Yeah, on the Champions League we did.
So
sure.
Benfica but there's still some question marks over Benfica's head, at least from what I can see. So, I can't call it, to be honest.
No,
and you know what's going to be major? It's going to be major to know if Feza and Jardel come off with yellow cards against Setúbal, then Benfica's chances get lower. But also, if Porto managed to lose Felipe, who was also on his 4th yellow, coming to Toulouse without Felipe, it's gonna be tough. So Jardel, Feza, and Felipe can all miss the Classic, obviously, excluding red cards. So any of those three players would be major losses for their teams. So we also have these. We cannot. Neither coach can overlook this week, because if one of them gets a yellow, then it's a completely different story. Benfica having to play with either Luizão or Samaris or both, and Porto having to play with Reyes at the Luz. I mean, remember the last time Reyes played at the Luz? He committed a penalty a couple of years back. So this next week is major too.
Uh-huh.
All right, so Steve's been really quiet, so I don't know if you want to say anything else, Steven, about, just what's been happening. By the way, Porto play Aves, right?
Porto, yeah, they host Aves Sunday at 1. First is tomorrow's game.
Right, Sporting, I know. But, so, Steven, I was just asking if you had anything else that you would like to say about, Porto or whatever right now, before we move on to the predictions.
Well, I do agree with some of your analysis. I agree with all of them, but pretty much Porto's form has dipped a little bit. I think Porto had caught in Portugal's bug of bad defending. So I guess we're watching that Netherlands game, and we brought it to this game. I think that they do need to improve that way they can keep up with Benfica to try to win the league. So I'm hoping that they come back from this win and reflect on it.
All right. I guess it's time to move on to predictions then.
Yep.
Right. So tomorrow, Atletico Madrid are hosting Sporting. 3:05 p.m. for me. Huh? Yeah, of course. So what are you thinking, Patty?
Well, hold on. He has his mic muted, so he might be
Patty, where'd you go?
He might be doing something,
No, quickish.
Wow, why would you think about that? Unbelievable.
What's your guess then, Peter?
I don't know. He could be drinking something, or he could have went away to do something.
Oh, Jesus, I mean for the score.
Oh, okay. Okay, I was going to say
not
something.
Taking bets on what he's doing.
Oh, he got kicked out of the call. That's what he's saying.
I'm here.
Okay, there you go.
Here.
He's back.
I see you still.
Yeah, back around. All right. So prediction for your Sporting
against Atletico.
Yeah, man.
I don't know. It's so difficult to.
Oh no, you muted yourself again.
Oh.
There you are.
Yeah, it's.
Just say 2-0.
Is it in Spain or in Portugal?
Is it it's in Spain
tomorrow.
It's in Spain.
All right, we're taking a 1-1 draw. We'll sort them out in Portugal.
That's very confident. Look at this guy.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I got 2-0 for Atletico.
I got the same, man. I had already written that down. Steve, what do you think Sporting's doing tomorrow in Madrid? You're muted too.
Hold on. He knows. He just takes a little bit.
I know. I'm just letting him know. Yep, you're there.
All right. So, Steven, predictions for Sporting, Athletic Madrid Sporting.
Well, first of all, I want to say the quote that JJ made about Griezmann, how he was comparing him to Messi, that he moves different or he's more Messi. I don't think that's a very good comparison. And the fact that he has a game plan to defend him, I think that's also funny because I don't think there is a way you can defend Griezmann with the amount of speed he has. So I think Sporting might lose this game. I'm not going to say a blowout. I'll probably say 2-0 just to be nice.
That's three of us saying 2-0. Patrick, you're going to keep your 1-1 tie?
No, look, Atletico have had some very tricky games. It's a little bit. There's a hint of Porto too. Obviously, Simeone's a great motivator with his team, but sometimes they lack that element of creativity, and I think Sporting have more than enough to make it difficult for them. And make life difficult. So yeah, 1-1. That's what I'm going for. Sometimes Atletico struggle to find that goal. So that's what I'm banking on. Well, they would score, but more than one.
Yeah,
I'm
we
not
know
having.
what you
I'm
meant.
not having more than one.
All right. All right. Well, I honestly don't know what the next game is,
I got it.
chronologically
It's
speaking.
Stubble. Stubel's hosting Benfica on
Great.
Saturday at 3:30.
That's great.
For me.
I'm glad that
3:30.
game. I'm glad we play first again. Cynthia, you go first.
Actually, Conceição complained about that.
Of course he did.
Well, whatever.
What a surprise.
I say we're going to win 2-0 there.
Okay, I'll say 2-1. Benfica, obviously.
Patty?
I'll go for 2-0 to Benfica.
I hope you're both right.
Can't just copy my score.
We gotta hear the Portista now. Steven.
Hello.
There you
Yay,
are.
Steven.
All right, sorry. What did I miss? I apologize.
Stubel are hosting Benfica.
Yeah.
Stubel hosting Benfica.
Hosting, not hosing.
I'm shaking my head.
Why?
I'm going to say Benfica's
It's a
going to
hockey
win
thing,
2-0.
stupid. 2-0 for Benfica?
Yeah, I don't
you guys
think
are all
Stubel
just piggybacking off of me, man.
All right, I'll change mine to 3-0.
Benfica's on a really good wave right now, so I think they're going to continue the winning streak.
Stephen, thank you for
Stubel has a
saying that.
chance.
The previous Porto man, when I said that Benfica get into a stride, he went, stride.
You guys beat Moreirense.
Yeah. So thank you. Yes, we do get into a wave, don't we? We get into our little joggers run. All right, Porto then host Avs Sunday at 1.
Steven.
What was the game again? I'm sorry.
Porto host Avs on Sunday at 1 o'clock.
We host Avs.
Yes.
Oh, man, I feel bad for that team.
You do.
It's going to be a blowout, 4-0. Yeah, I think after that loss, I think we need to destroy a small team like that at home to show our dominance and show that we're still in the title race. I feel bad for that team. I'm sorry for them.
I can see that as well. So I'll go one below. I'll go 3-0.
I'll go different and I'll go 1-1.
I'm saying 1-1. And I just wanted to point out, last week we all got all the scores wrong, but I was the only one who said both Porto and Sporting were going to lose. But in all fairness, I'm pretty sure I say that every week. So, and then our final game is Sporting hosting.
Cynthia, just hold on, just a second, because they both like kind of gave me a little bit of a reaction when I said 1-1.
Oh, you want to hear why?
Yeah, let's just not forget that when we played Avs, we thought it was going to be an easy game too, and they defended really well. And if Porto show any sign of defensive, if they make any defensive mistakes, this game can be really tough if Avs gets a goal. Obviously, they could still turn it around and win 4-1, but my idea would be that if Avs manages to get a goal, or even if it's like 1-0 with 70 minutes in, then it's an open game and the Avs have a chance to tie the game because they played well against Benfica. I'm banking if they do the same against Porto, they can get a result out of it. So there you go, haters.
Well, no, but you're right. As close as we are to the top, the bottom teams are all very close as well, and so they're going to start fighting. And when they play against us, Bruno said it. I don't know, a few pods ago, and he was like, they start playing that low game, and we got to either you adapt or you start losing. And I mean, this past Porto game, that's exactly what it is. And then our final game here is Sporting and Paços de Ferreira. That's Sunday at 3:15.
Yeah, that will be a difficult game because obviously we've got Atletico and Madrid to come
on
tomorrow.
Thursday.
So,
yeah.
And Paços de Ferreira are one of those teams that they're down the bottom and they're fighting for every point they can get.
And they come off a win.
In the same way that Avs will be against Porto. I just think Avs will catch Porto at the wrong time because Porto need to
Because they're angry.
They need to come up with an answer. But back to Sporting. I'm predicting a difficult game, but I'll still back Sporting to win 2-1. Difficult one though, very difficult.
All right. Well, I go with the same scoreline as the Porto game. I go 1-1.
Dude, you're copying me. And then Steve, what are you calling?
Agree with Patrick. I think they do need to have a response from that game. So I would definitely think at least 2-0, unless that Atletico game goes worse than I thought. If they lose really bad to Atletico, then I think they really need to step up and try to at least go for a 4-0 win. But I'm not going to use that as the prediction, so I'll stay with 2-0.
All right. So before we close out the podcast, I just wanted to say that we got a question from Josie. And I pretty much touched on it a little bit earlier. But just to give you a consensual answer, is that he asked if Benfica with JJ played a lot of games, a lot of big games with a low block and just defended. And that was the norm with JJ. There were a couple of games, obviously, there's exceptions. When we beat Porto 3-1, when we beat Porto 2-0 with the Eusebio game. But, we beat Porto 2-0 just defending and being extremely lucky. We beat Sporting the same way. So it is the norm with JJ playing low block defensive game against big teams.
He varies it a bit sometimes. Obviously, sometimes he just tries to, get by with the very least that he can get out of his players. But there are times where Jesus will, he wants the lights on him and he'll turn up and make his team slap you. I think like his first season was a great example of that. Sporting dominated Porto and Benfica as soon as he arrived. Sometimes I don't know. You don't know what that's the thing. That's what I like to do. Sometimes you don't know what you're going to get with him.
Exactly, that's true. That is really true. Except when it's a Dragão, you normally know what you're getting at the Dragão.
Sometimes, yeah.
but yeah, I mean, obviously it varies. But I would say 7 out of 10 games he plays with a defensive low block. Just trying to get either. What did he call it? Like an Italian win, basically, like a team playing like Italians team used to, or he settles for the draw. But that normally is the norm for him.
Yeah, I would say that's like the grindhouse type of soccer.
Yeah.
The old school Italian.
I wouldn't say it's like, for example, looking at the games that we played against Real Madrid and Barcelona and all that. Obviously, Sporting were predominantly defensive, but it's not
I think
if you compare it to like Mourinho, for example, who has the resources, by the way. I think that's more like rigid and restrained than what Jesus tries to do. I think Jesus he embraces the element of like unity. So obviously when they're at the back, they're defensive and then they attack in numbers.
But I think the Champions League is a whole different monster where I truly believe that JJ puts the best team he can, which is why he had, good games against several teams, in the past, like Chelsea or, even Sevilla. We had a lot of good games, and with Sporting too. But internally, in Portugal, that seems to be the opposite of for any reason that he can come up with, because we've seen him play well with Juventus as Benfica manager where he won that game. We saw him play well against Real Madrid where he nearly lost because of Cristiano Ronaldo. You saw them play against Barcelona where you guys said that you had a great game. So in the Champions League, JJ doesn't really feel the threat of the big team. He normally never gets blown out, rarely ever gets blown out. But internally in Portugal, when you're playing teams of the same caliber, he always seems to play defensively with a little ball.
There are moments, yeah. I think perhaps, as you say, sometimes he really goes for it. Sometimes he is a little bit more cautious. I don't know. Sometimes you have to look into like the fixtures that are around that game, or what he sees in training. Perhaps some players are looking a bit more fragile for form and all that, and he tries to protect. I don't know. I don't know what goes through his head, but yeah, he's like a trick of a box of tricks when it comes to big games sometimes. But I wouldn't say he's full on defensive. To me, rather than 7 out of 10, I reckon it's probably down the middle, 5 out of 10. He'll come out defensive. Sometimes he'll come out aggressive and blow you away.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that's all that we have for this week's episode. We're coming back next week, obviously, to discuss all the games that we've spoken about. So, Atlético Sporting, Benfica, Setúbal Benfica, Porto Aves, and Sporting Passos Ferreira. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Cynthia, for coming on today. Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
everybody that listened. And we'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
All right. Sounds good. Have a good one, guys.
Have a good night, everybody.